Star Citizen Live, the show where they talk about the development of the game, is finally back, and the first one of 2025 has proved to be quite the banger at nearly 3 hours long, featuring one of my favorite people from CIG, Benoit Bozejau, I hope I didn't butcher that name, Chief Technology Officer at CIG, where he candidly shares with us their major shift in developments going into 2025. And the reason why I really like him is because when he says that he's going to do something, usually we find out that it's been done, so I've got a lot of trust in what he has to say. He's always come off as really honest and connected with the current state of things in the community. Now, I've sifted through it so you don't have to, distilling down the most important points that they covered, including some juicy info that you're going to want to hear about some heavily community requested quality of life improvements that they're working on right now. So jump in with me, and if by the end you think I did a good job and you want to stick around for more, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to show your support. Just like I hope you'll stick around to hear about the generous sponsor of today's video, Incogni. Now, you guys, I know, are pretty smart, so I know you probably already know that being online means that your personal info, like your social security number, employment history, address, and more, are being collected and sold by companies to adjust your credit score and do other crappier things. You've probably also heard that when they inevitably get hacked, your identity and money could be at risk of being stolen, like what happened to me a couple years ago. What you might not know, though, is that there are laws that can force those companies to delete your information, and Incogni service knows exactly how to automatically reach out and use them to find those companies and tell them to get rid of it. When I signed up, I found out that there were over 90 companies with my personal info, so it's no wonder I kept getting invited to scam investor groups. So if you want to just have a little bit more peace of mind knowing that your information isn't getting into the wrong hands, you can get a chunk of it off the internet today with Incogni. Just head on over to incogni.com/morphologist and use code morphologist to get 60% off an Incogni purchase. And don't worry, if it's not for you, you can always get your money back with their 30-day money-back guarantee. That's incogni.com/morphologist and use code morphologist. Historically, Star Citizen development has focused on adding new major features every 3 months. However, over time, they realized that this approach often introduces instability and doesn't address long-standing bugs that degrade the player experience. For instance, there have been several major patch cycles over the past year that have had their releases delayed in order to fully prepare the features within, and the downside was that when waiting for these features, we've had to basically deal with a massive issue with unstable servers until the next quarter, waiting on those quality of life improvements to fix the current experience for another 3 months, only to get a series of new problems. It's been an unstable mess for a long time. Ben explained that their new strategy then for 2025 is to deprioritize features, retasking developers from their feature work to focus on bug fixing, performance, stability improvements, and content expansion using existing systems. Ben noted, though, that while these features will still continue to be developed, their pace will be slowed down to allow time for more bug fixing and optimization before they make their way to the live environment. He also said that by having developers only work on bug fixing, it may affect morale negatively, so there's still a need to balance developer work between features and just bug fixing. The new strategy then will adjust the cadence of patches, and instead of large quarterly releases like we've been used to, packed with features, they're going to be moving to smaller, incremental patches, lighter on features, while major ones are worked on in the background. According to Jared, they've already got 10 on the docket going into 2025, with presumably more, suggesting nearly a patch a month in this year. It's kind of a wild goal, we'll just have to see if they meet it. The goal is then to reduce game-breaking instability created by the introduction of incomplete features into the game code. Each patch then will look to deliver smaller content updates that enhance the gameplay without much technical risk. What players should experience then is fewer disruptions thanks to more frequent game updates with a focus on a stable experience alongside story-driven content based again on existing gameplay. They stressed multiple times, though, that the work on base building, the resource network, crafting, etc. would be ongoing, just again at a slower pace, with more stable and complete results at the end. A big part of this strategy shift is to fulfill Chris Roberts' promise in his letter from the chairman last year to deliver a more playable experience in 2025 by delivering more content and quality of life features for players. But this change will pose some new risks to the project, as Ben and Jared both noted in the video how fewer features would likely make it more difficult to market the game to returning and new players alike. Star Citizen, after all, is still a player-funded game. Even in the best case scenario where they achieve overall stability, near the end of the video even Ben pointed out himself that one of the results will likely be a strong desire to see more features. It would seem then that CIG shares my own concern that even in a perfect state, the current version of Star Citizen still lacks important features tying game elements together in a cohesive and compelling way, which is why Ben explained that there's still a need to continue working on features, and I absolutely agree. But as he went on to say, there's never been more need than now to fix and improve the game. Which means a focus on quality of life for players. A significant portion of the QoL improvements will be centered around stability and performance. Frequent game crashes, server instability, and long load times, especially in Pyro, have been major concerns. Ben outlined in detail how they're actively working to reduce login failures, improve server performance, and optimize resource streaming to ensure smoother frame rates. That means fixing issues where players become locked in broken shards. And to that end, they finally talked about introducing a scheduled maintenance period where we'll be able to see server shards go down and get refreshed and get hotfixed regularly, keeping them healthy and playable for all. Frankly, it's something we've all wanted for a long time and actually just really needed. NPC processing will also be more refined to prevent excessive CPU loads, while server balancing will prevent overloaded shards from deteriorating gameplay. These updates should make the game more responsive and less prone to disconnects. Another major area of focus is fixing persistent bugs in core systems such as elevators, hangars, and mission objectives. Elevators and trams have long been the bane of the Star Citizen's experience, with issues ranging from disappearing elevators to players just falling through the floor. CIG has started by implementing a short-term fix that forces these elevators to reappear when they bug out. Well, in the background, there's already a team working on a long-term solution, which involves rewriting the transit code system to make it more stable. So think more stable trams and elevators overall. Hangars and issues with ship storage is also being addressed, particularly related to ship retrieval, ship despawning mid-flight, and incorrect hangar assignments. Ben also put special emphasis on the fact that they're acutely aware of these problems and they're presently working to fix them. The most important takeaway here is that this is CIG drawing attention to their current efforts, not just plans towards making the game playable as they've talked about in the past. Ben then continued that missions and NPC behavior are being improved to ensure that mission objectives update correctly, enemy NPCs spawn as intended, and rewards are properly distributed. This includes a more intentional version of a group mission reward system that incentivizes players to group up instead of the current system, which is less than ideal, that splits the reward and the reputation into smaller segments, making it far less appealing to get grouped up. On top of that, many players, including myself, on many occasions have encountered frustrating mission bugs, such as objectives failing to register or cargo disappearing upon delivery. To address these concerns, Ben reiterated that CIG has implemented a new mission system that works better with server meshing as part of the 4.0 release, but that he acknowledges that there are issues with it and they're multifaceted and will take time to be addressed. He pointed out how mission designs themselves have caused issues, and one of the ways they're addressing this right now is by rewriting the mission creation system to modernize it and make the jobs of the mission team a little bit easier. They're also refining the way markers and objectives are tracked across multiple game servers, reducing inconsistencies and increasing mission reliability. Inventory persistence and item management have also been another big challenge for players, with many reporting lost items after patches or game crashes. CIG is improving the long-term persistent database, which stores information about all inventories and items by reworking how the inventory dataset is saved, ensuring that wipes and updates don't just erase things that players own unnecessarily. He also addressed that they've already identified some of the issues with items being deleted after looting them from contested zones, so that should happen less and less, if at all, going forward. Additionally, they're actively working on developing a unique item recovery system, which I can already hear you guys cheering about in the comment section below, which will allow players to retrieve lost rare items rather than losing them permanently. This is perhaps one of the single most requested features by players to date. After all, it's not fun knowing that any random bug or accident could just render a purchased item inaccessible for months until it's reset with another patch. So right now they're developing a new system to help you recover those items, but it's important to note that this recovery system has been mentioned for many years, I think going back to as far as 3 years ago, so hopefully they're finally putting their words in action and not just talking about it. He does say though that eventually they plan on making the system tied to the crafting system, where the items that you get on the website that are unique or through, say, rewards, actually give you a blueprint instead, where you can use materials to craft the item and get it back that way. I'm excited to see how this is going to work exactly, especially if we can use them to craft multiple of one of those rare items. Certainly this is going to require some balancing on CIG's part. The economy and trading system are also being refined. Persistent issues with the commodity trading system, cargo vanishing upon ship despawns, and the market data inconsistencies people are encountering are also being addressed. Alongside these fixes, quantum travel mechanics are also being improved to ensure that there are smoother transitions across mesh servers and preventing ships from randomly stopping mid-quantum jump or losing fuel unexpectedly, which is unfortunately happening right now. Ben also highlighted issues with the prison system, which he noted was tied to an older implementation of SC's mission tech, which had conflicts with the current version of server meshing. These problems have since been hotfixed, which he promises will ensure that it works most of the time, so long as the elevators are working. But talking the talk without walking the walk has long been an issue for Star Citizen. To make this all happen, Ben explained that they're going to leverage a significant new strategy to help them get these issues resolved more quickly, referred to as a Joker card system, an allotment of approval-free requests to commandeer vital talent from other teams for important tasks. Basically, they can cut some red tape and get to the developers that they need, which are really specialized, and get things done more quickly. Oftentimes, a lot of these big issues that we experience as players often don't go addressed because of resource availability issues on CIG's part. Some issues require very specialized developers who may be hard at work on something else that's also very high priority. This is why that even though they fixed over 2,900 cited bugs in 4.01, the results were still a net step backward according to Ben himself. But he cited an example where they used this new strategy where it really benefited the game. There was a high priority item where the physics engine was causing issues if there were overlapping objects, which would result in severe server performance loss. The Joker card was used in this case to help get someone from the physics engine team to work on addressing this right away, and they were able to solve the issue. Ben also talked about how there's now an internal directors list which has a list of priority quality of life issues affecting the players the most. Ben acknowledged that it's not always easy to see things from the player's perspective when you're inside, so it's important to keep in mind that while issues are being fixed internally, what really matters is what players are experiencing on the outside. These priority lists then are a way for them to set goals that they want to meet before a patch goes live to just make our experience a heck of a lot better. Additionally, they're working on an update to the error reporting system to give it more descriptive information to us when we have a problem. For example, that notorious 30K error that you've probably seen a million times has hundreds of root causes. So to clearly assign codes would allow us to better understand what exactly is going on in the background and allow developers to be able to better address these problems when we report them and when QA finds them. In some cases, then they'll also be able to allow us to work around the issues ourselves. For example, if there's an error message that explains that there's a client-side issue with our connection and has nothing to do with CIG servers, well, then we know that it's something that we can fix and it's one less report for them to sift through on their reporting system. But what about that elephant in the room, Squadron 42? They're still working on that this year, right? Yes. Well, Ben addressed this and their resource allocation between the two games, where he revealed for the first time that internally, they're working towards having the game finished by the end of 2025. I can't believe they allowed him to say this. He paused for a second and he kind of looked around. I think he realized right when he said it that he may have revealed too much. But anyway, they want to be ready then for a 2026 release, which means that Star Citizen is still gonna have the issue of a split focus, with an admittedly heavy slant towards Squadron as still being priority. While they both share some core features, like Ben says, they are still different, with one being an MMO and one being a single-player game with very different requirements for each feature. They talked about balancing between both projects then in 2025, with engineers now being more split depending on priority. Giving some context to this change, this wasn't always the case, which ended up creating some internal friction between the teams. Meanwhile, the server meshing and backend teams are primarily focused on Star Citizen, since Squadron 42 doesn't have any server meshing technology since it's a single player game. But one thing that Ben noted that they want to be very careful of is doing too much context switching for the devs, as constantly going between different projects could cause additional fatigue on engineers and reduce the quality and efficiency of their work. To this end, they're going to have some flex teams where engineers will move between projects as needed. Jared also wanted to address community expectations regarding 4.01 with Ben, which some followers of the project expected to be a silver bullet for a lot of the major issues. Now personally, I saw this as an understandable reaction by the community that's faced a pretty frustrating development process where issues obvious to players oftentimes feel ignored by developers, even if that's not the case internally. Admittedly, a single patch is unlikely to resolve any major issue players are facing, so clear communication on CIG's part is key to managing these expectations to avoid these kinds of PR problems. Ben went on to say that optimizing and fixing issues will be an ongoing process through 2025, with more frequent patches being the thing that fixes stuff over time. The goal is that by the end of this year, they'll have achieved their goal of making the game significantly more stable and playable than it's ever been in the past. So then, the first Star Citizen Live in 2025 has set the tone for what promises to be a transformative year for the game, hopefully, and finally shifting the negative perception of Star Citizen away from being a broken game. Ben's candid insights made it refreshingly clear that the development team is fully aware of the game's most pressing issues and is actively working to resolve them through a combination of structural changes, increasing developer flexibility, and committing to prioritizing community-impacting problems. While challenges definitely still remain, particularly with balancing resources between Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, the shift towards more frequent, incremental updates rather than quarterly feature drops signals hopefully a more sustainable development strategy for CIG. The road ahead then won't be without hurdles, but if CIG follows through on these commitments, I've got hope that we'll see a Star Citizen that's more stable, engaging, and rewarding. The only major question on my mind is whether or not this new strategy is going to detrimentally affect the wider interest in the game that the game really needs in order to continue funding the project through the year. I guess we'll just have to see how it unfolds over the year. Hopefully with fewer crashes, more solid elevators, and a Star Citizen experience that finally feels persistently good. One other thing, if you've stuck around until now and you want to support the channel even just a little bit more, and you want to get your code featured here on my channel to get some more free ships, you can head on over to my Patreon where you can support me that way and get some pretty cool benefits. Hope to see you in the next one.